The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation-building series, The Law and You. This is program number 918. Coming to you on Monday the 22nd of October 2018. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, alleged beatings in captivity. But before getting into the topic, a few preliminary remarks. Firstly, and as usual, I would like to send out my condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. And secondly, I would like to wish happy independence to one and all as we approach the 39th anniversary of our political independence, but not unfortunately our legal independence, as you have heard me say time and again. As long as we are dependent on a foreign nation for our final judicial pronouncements, then we do not have full legal independence. So happy political and social and cultural independence to one and all. This topic has been prompted by recent discussions on the airwaves and in the newspapers on allegations made in recent times that some persons in custody have been beaten by those holding them in lawful custody. I am not in a position to go into the rights and wrongs and into the veracity of those who made complaints. Suffice it to note that complaints have been made. People have complained to the magistrate that they have been beaten while in police custody. I have followed the writings of the Honorable Jomo Thomas on the issue, and I am in full agreement with the statements he has made, as well as that of other persons who have written in the newspapers on the topic. This is a matter that revives in me strong feelings of revulsion. For those whose memories go back to the early 1980s, let me remind you of a case involving the death in police custody at the Central Police Station here in Kingstown of a person who was in custody, one Alfonso Shallow of Lomans Hill. Shallow had been taken into police custody, had been kept at the Central Police Station, and, to put it in neutral language, was discovered dead one day. A coroner's inquest was held at the Kingstown Magistrates Court, which in those days sat upstairs the courthouse. At that coroner's inquest, Alfonso Shallow's family were represented by Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and myself, pro bono, free of charge. The coroner's inquest heard the evidence of several policemen. Of course, there was no civilian that was available. And the coroner's inquest brought in a verdict that Alfonso Shallow died accidentally when he fell from the bench on which he was sitting and struck his head on the floor. That was the verdict of the coroner's inquest. Accidental death. That case had a profound effect on me because I felt, and Dr. Gonsalves, my co-counsel in the matter, we both felt very, very strongly that there had been a miscarriage of justice. It came to pass that I became Attorney General in 1987. And within a few months of my tenure as Attorney General, a magistrate reported to me by telephone that he had witnessed a shameful miscarriage of justice and he hoped I would do something about it. What was that miscarriage of justice about which that magistrate reported to me? He is now deceased. I will not identify the village, but in a certain village in the countryside, a man went to the police station apparently to quarrel with a policeman about the man's daughter. The man ended up dead. He was shot in the police station by a policeman. A coroner's jury was duly empaneled. And the magistrate heard the case, and the coroner's jury brought back a verdict of accidental death. The man received one gunshot wound to the chest. It was beyond dispute that the bullet that killed the man was discharged from a firearm fired by a policeman in uniform on duty at the police station. But coroner's jury said accidental killing. And the magistrate was incensed, hence his phone call to me. He subsequently wrote me officially to complain about what he regarded as a miscarriage of justice. Well, the case of Alfonso Shallow was then fresh in my mind. And the circumstances of the empaneling of the coroner's jury was also fresh in my mind. And I said, this is something I have to do something about. I went to the Prime Minister, now Sir James Mitchell, told him what the magistrate had told me, and suggested to him that we ought to amend the law pertaining to the selection of coroner's juries. Because within a few months we changed the law. We went to Parliament, I think in 1988, the year after I was sworn in, and passed an amendment to the Coroner's Act, changing the law. What was the law we changed? The law we changed was those sections of the Coroner's Act which said that whenever a coroner's jury was to empaneled to inquire into an unusual or strange death, the police superintendent in charge of the district in which the death occurred was empowered to pick 5 people at random, to select any 5 persons. And those 5 persons selected by the police superintendent in the district in which the body of somebody was discovered and into which a coroner's inquest was being held. It was the responsibility of the policeman to pick 5 people and put them to sit as a coroner's jury. So the jury selected in the case of Alfonso Shallow was composed overwhelmingly of persons who were either friendly with or beholden to the police. One of them was a gun dealer. In the case of the inquest about which the magistrate wrote me, again, the superintendent of police in that district, different district from the Kingstown district, he selected 5 persons, all of whom turned out to have been beholden to the police, very close to the police, and they returned the verdict of accidental killing. Clearly, the selection of the coroner's jury in the hands of the very police into whom you are inquiring indicated that something was wrong with the procedure. So we in cabinet, on my advice, said no. Let the coroner's jury be 5 people selected from the ordinary juries list, which is used in the High Court of Justice in the trial of indictable cases. And so it was, so that if you look at the Coroner's Act now, as it stands from 1988 when it was amended, Coroner's Act is Chapter 21 of the Revised Laws 2009. You will see Part 3 of the Coroner's Act deals with juries. And Section 21 reads, and this is the amendment which was passed in Parliament in my time. Subsection 1, where by this act a coroner is required to hold an inquest, he shall, subject to the provisions of Section 15, issue his warrant directed to the Registrar of the High Court, requiring the Registrar to summon 10 persons to appear before the coroner at a specified time and place, from among whom 5 persons shall be selected by lot to constitute a coroner's jury in accordance with the procedure used in selecting jurors in cases tried in the High Court, there to inquire as jurors touching the death of such person as aforesaid. Now, since then, of course, coroner's juries, having been selected at random from the ordinary jury pool, have returned a variety of verdicts. But no one can say that they were handpicked by the very police into whose behavior and conduct you are inquiring. I say all of that to suggest that the law requires an emphasis on justice. It doesn't always achieve that requirement, but law is supposed to be administered with justice in mind. And one of the fundamental laws of this country is that persons cannot be physically brutalized except by a process of law. And even then, the avenues of brutalizing have been whittled down considerably. We no longer have punishment by flogging, but the law gives the right to those who hold the people in lawful custody to restrain them. And of course, if persons in custody resist arrest, then they have to be restrained. Nobody is saying that. But what the law does not countenance, the law does not excuse, the law does not allow, the law does not permit people in custody to be beaten. And the point has to be made loud and clear. It isn't that anybody is against the police. Far from it. In these crime-ridden days, well, we've always been crime-ridden, but lately the criminals have become more brazen. We want the police to be active in investigating alleged offenses, in apprehending alleged offenders, in having them charged in the legal process, and having them brought before the courts. But nothing in those processes allow those who take people in lawful custody to beat them. So where there are allegations of brutality by the police or anybody else holding somebody in lawful custody, then those allegations have to be very carefully dealt with. We want our policemen to be effective because we want crime to be controlled. But policemen must understand that the police powers do not extend to assaulting persons in custody, except by way of self-defense. If somebody in lawful custody resists arrest or tries to escape lawful custody, then the law gives the police the power and the duty to use such force as may be reasonable to bring the person under control and under subjection. So that if a fellow is being arrested and he boxes the police, well, the policeman have a right to defend himself. And if by chance he has a staff in his hand, it might be reasonable to retaliate from a box by using the staff, so that nobody in custody has a right to assault a policeman. That is clear. And those who do that are begging for what they receive. But short of self-defense and short of using reasonable force to restrain an aggressive person attempted to be held in lawful custody, there are no powers that the police have or anybody else has to assault someone in custody. Not too long ago, I saw on Eyewitness News, and I want to thank Mr. Chance for that service he has been doing. I saw photographs of several persons who had been taken into police custody. And the photographs were remarkably similar. All of the persons appear to have swollen areas around their eyes and in other parts of their faces. Two of them appear to have bloodshot eyes. And I said, well, it's either that these persons, when they were apprehended, have remarkably similar configurations on their faces, or something happened to them in the process of being arrested and held and taken into lawful custody. So that, and then the newspapers came out with photographs, very well taken, showing signs of injury to the faces of persons in custody. Of course, it may well be that nobody assaulted them, that they simply developed these apparent wounds and contusions spontaneously. Funnily enough, those of you who follow international news would have heard the story of Mr. Agnan Khashoggi, where he went into the consulate of Saudi Arabia in Turkey, apparently to get some documents relating to his marriage. He was supposed to get married the next day. So he went, he's a Saudi Arabian citizen, was residing in the United States of America and contributing as a journalist to the Washington Post. I had seen several reports he had done on television. He was quoted to be a dissident, but he had denied that he was a dissident. He simply said he was a journalist wanting to highlight certain alleged shortcomings of the Saudi Arabian authorities. So there were pictures of him going into the consulate in Turkey, which diplomatically is the property of Saudi Arabia. A consulate and other diplomatic quarters are regarded as the property of the state whose quarters they are, and did not emerge. And several stories came from the Saudi authorities. They first said, yes, he came to the consulate, but then he left. Then the story changed. They said, no, he didn't leave, but he got into a fist fight with some officials of the Saudi Arabian government. And in the last couple of days, the Saudi authorities have now conceded that the man was murdered. And the evidence was that 15 operatives linked to the Saudi Arabian government had gone on 2 special flights to Turkey and were there in the consulate when Mr. Khashoggi went in to get his papers. One of those who went there was a surgeon having a bone saw, that is a saw to cut human bones. Now, the Turkish Prime Minister said that tomorrow, Tuesday, he's going to make a statement. But all the evidence so far points to the man, Mr. Khashoggi, having been murdered in the Saudi Arabian consulate in Turkey. And the whole world practically is up in arms about that, because they feel, well, no, that is going too far. I mean, the government of Saudi Arabia has been accused of many atrocities and accused of taking many lives in the past. But it is claimed that that one was too much, too brazen. And I believe that is going to have serious repercussions. So that even by international law, people have certain inalienable human rights. And one of those rights is not to lose your life, and in our case in St. Vincent, not to be brutalized unless by process of law. So coming back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I know that when policemen are trained, they are taught to use only such force as is reasonably necessary. I know that because I have been involved in lecturing to several batches of trainees over the years. And I have emphasized to the trainees to whom I have lectured what reasonable force is. Reasonable force means only such force as is necessary to deal with the situation at hand. The question of reasonable force runs through the law. So policemen are not trained to beat people, but some of them, and unfortunately, it is normally just a few, a handful of policemen who go overboard. The bulk of policemen stick within the law. But if you do get overzealous, perhaps they are goaded by the persons in custody, and some of these people in custody can get very cheeky and aggravate, let us use that word in that context, aggravate the policemen having them in custody. Well, if you find yourself being arrested, squad of policemen have you, and you start to cheek police off and carry on, then you are inviting the use of unnecessary force on your person. So I'm not trying to say that the people taken in custody are saints or Sunday school boys. No. But I'm saying that the law of this land, starting with the Constitution right down, protects persons from being assaulted or brutalized. And you cannot do that. The police cannot take the law into their own hands. They have to bring persons before a court of law to be dealt with. It should be the duty of the judge and the magistrates to issue punishment. Police do not have punitive powers. They have powers of arrest, powers of charging, laying your evidence, but police are not given powers to punish anybody. And that has to be said loud and clear. Having said so, we thank those policemen who carry out their duties in a responsible and law-abiding manner, and we hope they will be successful in curbing the spread of crime and in arresting those accused of committing crime. But I add my voice to the chorus of persons who say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Well, that is all from this program of The Law and You. I look forward to being of further service to you next week, Monday, DV, for another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. Do have a pleasant week. Do have very enjoyable 39th Independence Anniversary celebrations. And I wish success to the Madongo Festival. I look forward to Madongo and Fungi, which I haven't had for years and years since I was a child. May the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.